The content in this magazine could contain references of topics and difficult subject matter that may be triggering. Please honor yourself, inner knowing, and proceed with whatever help or guidance you feel is intuitively aligned. Welcome to Sovereign Magazine Podcast. I'm Nicole George, CEO and founder of Sovereign. I'm so happy you are here. We are the magazine, podcast, and community guiding 5 million women to their sovereign selves. From heart-led conversations to magical meditations, our inspiring guests will show you how they can help you step into your sovereign self. Are you ready to listen to your inner voice and step into your power? Then keep listening to hear all of the intuitive messages meant for you today. Hello. Today I have the privilege of reconnecting with Renee Merkle, Sovereign Magazine's multidimensional channel and quantum new earth columnist. She is here to activate spiritual leaders into world-shifting embodiment. Through her transmissions from the galactic and ascended realms, she sparks transformation beyond logic and guides others to lead from pure frequency. Her work isn't for those who want incremental change. It is for those ready to burn the old rulebook, lead from pure frequency, and create a reality that defies logic. Renee doesn't simply guide you, she ignites you. Welcome back, Renee.
Hello, welcome. I was going to say welcome.
That's okay.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for welcoming me. So today we're talking about your front cover article. So for anybody who is experiencing this new earth consciousness and uncomfortableness, this month for April full moon, we're talking about finding balance. And in Renee's article, A Threshold Between Two Worlds, which many of us are feeling like we're living between two worlds right now, Renee really explores the collective and planetary initiation that we're experiencing and the dissolution of old paradigms, as well as the birth of a new consciousness. So for those who haven't read your article yet, Renee, why don't you recap a little bit about it, what we're experiencing, and anything else you want to contribute?
All right. So if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of tension in the world right now, and it is divinely orchestrated. It is happening in divine time and divine order. And we are in the process of the 3D matrix collapsing. And we've gone through all of these different movements throughout history. And speaking of the United States, because that's where my experience is, we've had the civil rights movement, we've had the women's rights movement, we've had the gay rights movement, we've had all of these different movements. And we thought, okay, we're done. We did it. Let's move on to the next one. Well, there's always been this underlying energy that has been under the surface of kind of just being swept under the rug. Yeah, we handled it, but the frequency didn't get carried forward. And so, I'm going to talk about the civil rights movement specifically. So we had the civil rights movement and we were moving towards equality. And we had Martin Luther King Jr., we've had all of these civil rights movement leaders who brought us to a certain point. And there have been some people who have carried the torch forward, but they not to the extent of what was done in the 60s. And it's not something we can just say, okay, yay, let's wipe our hands of this, it's done. We've got to continue the work. And so we've had all of these things happen. If you have not heard me talk about it, I'm Cherokee and Pawnee. My ancestors were on the Trail of Tears. There is the energy of this land being stolen and the people who were here being massacred. And that has never been reconciled. We've had all of these things that have happened in the United States, slavery, concentration camps, all of these things that have happened that never actually were really addressed and the energy was not cleared. What are we doing now? We're clearing that energy because it cannot come forward to the new earth. And the new earth isn't a place, it's a frequency. And so we're transcending the matrix that we have been within for the last, 26,000 years or so. And we are moving out of that energy of having these systems and structures that have kept people in power, that had power over others, that have, you think about corporate America, there's a hierarchy, you're climbing the corporate ladder. All of these things are happening, and you're seeing people start to step out of it. When we went into lockdown in 2020, the world shut down and everybody had to take a time out. And we were able to see for the first time, without being in the rat race of everyday life of getting from point A to point B, that there was more that was available and that there was balance available. And so once you break through and you're out of the matrix, you can see how all of these systems and structures have been in place and how we've been programmed to operate within the confines of the matrix. And as it collapses, we are seeing more and more people awaken to the fact that their highest good hasn't been at the forefront of the matrix. And now people are able to see, oh, I get to choose for myself. I get to create freedom for myself. I get to not participate in the matrix. That's why you're seeing so many people step out of their traditional job and go into entrepreneurship, because they're looking for the freedom to have life on their own terms. That was a lot of the reason why I stepped away as well, even though mine was, I have a huge mission to do. I'm here to lead the ascension of humanity and Earth and to awaken the new Earth leaders to take their soul mission positions. And there was no way that my guides and team were going to allow me not to do it. So there's this whole balance that we're in where we can see the matrix for what it is, the way that things have always been, the old way, the old guard, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It's the way that things have been all the way up until now. And now everything is crumbling. And we have an opportunity to build in a new way in the new Earth frequency. So, Pluto is in Aquarius. And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and the Industrial Revolution. We're going to have revolutionary energy right now, because that is what happens when the power is in the people's hands. And when Pluto is in Aquarius, power is in the people's hands. And there is a lot of other astrological events that are happening that are contributing to the dismantling of the matrix, so that we can build in the new Earth frequency something that does actually lead to a world where we understand that we are all one. What happens to one happens to all. And if you don't understand that, everything that is happening right now, if you think it's happening to other people, it's also happening to you and can happen to you, because we are all one. And there's no separation. And so when you see someone's rights being taken or abused, it's happening to you as well, even if you don't feel the direct impact. And so if you can look at things as through that lens of we are all one, you're going to start taking all of your decisions a little bit differently. When you go to the polls, you're going to look at, how is my decision going to affect everyone else? Not just my own life, but everybody. So there's all of this happening, and it is all divinely orchestrated. And what it leads to is sovereignty, freedom, love, compassion, kindness, dignity, respect, equality, equity, you know, all of these things that we've been striving towards for so long, but there was always something that was in the way of us really making it all the way through. It's not going to happen overnight. There are 8 billion people on the planet and a planet that are all ascending at the same time. And if you're frustrated and all of that, I completely understand it. I've known what comes after all of this all of my life, and I'm still waiting for everyone to catch up. So the frustration is a real part of it. So, yes. Okay. That's kind of all that's coming through the channel at the moment about this.
Yeah.
So go ahead with any questions or whatever.
I do have questions. I do, because you have seen the other side. So, for those who are experiencing things in real time, you have experienced life after this destruction, dismantling, and the new earth consciousness. And so, for those of us who are trying to find balance between the matrix and the new earth, and we're kind of holding the polarity, if you will, between the two different realms, how can we deal with this? Because there's hope on one sense, and there's
Mm,
not hope on the other sense of what's going on, because you feel as though things are escalating and we're not getting anywhere, right? So, as
yeah.
this new earth mentor, how do you help us as a collective, as a society, continue to hold our vibration high so that we can get to the place that you have seen?
Okay. So they want to go kind of back to what I was talking about earlier, but I got off on a tangent. So as we've had all of these movements and we haven't carried the torch forward, all of this energy has to come up to the surface so it can clear once and for all. Just like when we do our own healing work, we have to clear the heavy, dense energies in order to have the breakthroughs to get to that spaciousness and the freedom in our own energy. And so we're doing that in the collective. And that's why it is so difficult, to say the least, to be here. And if you're listening to this, you are 95% chance of having volunteered to be here at this time because you wanted to be here for the Great Awakening. You chose to be here to be a part of this, to make your mark in this. And so you can ask your guides, what is my part in this? Like, my part is to show everyone how to get to the other side of this. But everyone has their own role, just like in a play. We all have a role to play, right? And so maybe your role is to, help candidates get into office that are going to be new earth leaders, that are going to have the highest good of humanity in their heart. Maybe it is that you go out and you make sure that the homeless are fed or that they have socks. It doesn't matter what the role is, it is just that you're taking steps towards it. And then work on our own energy first. And if you can keep your vibration high, that is going to ripple out into the world. How do you do that? You choose things that light up your soul, things that you love, that bring you joy, that bring you happiness. It is not getting sucked into the downward spiral of what's going on in the world. It is becoming centered and grounded. And my guides use this all the time: become the giant sequoia that cannot be swayed by a hurricane. This means that no matter how much chaos is going on in the world, you are grounded and you're centered and you can look at it objectively. You're zooming out and you're seeing things happening from an observer perspective rather than taking it personally. because we can all get sucked into the heavy density, chaos, craziness that's happening. But when we can make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're grounded, we're centered, we're doing things that we love, we're working on having our best life. When we do our work, it ripples out into those who are in our proximity, and then it ripples out to the proximity of those that are around them, and it can spread like wildfire across the globe as long as we are holding our light, as long as we're shining our light. We are helping to make the shift from the 3D to the new earth frequencies. And 2026 is very much a turning point year where back in 2021, my guides had brought through the analogy that we are birthing a new consciousness. It is just like going into labor and having a baby. Back then, we were just, casually on our way to the hospital. And now, we're in those deep pushes trying to get that baby out. And once the baby comes out, it's not all said and done. There's the fourth trimester, right? There's the recovery period where everybody is getting to know one another and understanding the new frequency and the new life that's there. So we're getting close to finally pushing that new earth out, but we have to continue to work on our vibration and work on what is going to serve the highest good of ourselves and for humanity. Because remember, we are all one.
Inside the Sovereign community, you'll find more than a social platform. You will find many private spaces led by women who walk the path with you, like Abby from Canada. Connect with her in her sacred space called Reclaimed and Rise. Step into the Maven Haven with Ebony from the UK, or join the Open Heart Collective with Bonnie from the US. These are just some of the soul sanctuaries curated by conscious women for conscious connection. Come find your space inside the Sovereign community today. This is like so fascinating for me. I love this stuff so much because I feel it. You were talking about we all have our place, and my guides also said, keep going, Nicole. You're putting a stamp on history and creating this platform for so many women to share their voice, anyone who identifies as a woman to share their voice and put a stamp on their story in history as we raise the vibration of the collective together. So that was my mission, right? And so
Yes,
I would say that I am still awakening every day because I'm learning something new every single day. But I'd love to move us into our steps to our sovereign self because I want to make sure that you have enough time to help all of us who are listening today learn the 5
yes,
phases of awakening. And I think this is really important because this becomes like our currency and reflects our ability to contribute to this awakening and the new frequency. And so if you're interested in how you can do that, these 5 phases of awakening are your guide for how you're going to contribute to this new earth consciousness. So I'm going to hand it over to
yes,
Rennie.
yes. And we are all still awakening every single day. There is no destination, it's a journey. And so wherever you are is perfect and just keep going. So the first step is disruption, a sense that something's off. So my biggest push was that no matter how hard I tried to stay in my corporate job, my physical body was disintegrating because they were like, this is not for you. Stop trying to play in the corporate you're not here to play in the matrix. It's time to go. And so it may be that a job suddenly ends, a relationship suddenly ends, family just, falls apart, whatever that is for you. It could be anything. It could just be like everything just feels off and I don't know why. And that's just how it starts. You start to just feel like, things are kind of crunchy here. And I don't know what exactly it is, but I know that something it needs to shift, and that's just kind of how it starts. Then you see through the conditioning. Your patterns become visible. So you start questioning and you start wondering. And, you might start looking at your childhood. For many of us, it's like, oh, I see, that my parents were narcissists, or I can see how the abuse that I had as a child has affected me now, or this is how I end up in the relationships I end up in because I went through this thing as a child, and now I can see how this all intertwines and comes together. And then you might even be noticing it in the collective. After that, your identity may collapse. All of those old roles that you've had, all of those ways that the ways that you have identified. Let's say they're bringing Christina Aguilera, fighter, into my mind, so I'm going to use that. So let's say that you've identified as a fighter. You've been through so much in life and you're just tough and you're a fighter and you're going to have that chip on your shoulder because that's who you are. And then that identity collapses and you realize that you're really a softie and that you have a lot of emotions that you haven't processed, that you've stuffed, and you start working through that. Maybe it's that, like me, you had always had that safe, stable, secure corporate position. And then one day it's like, you don't belong here anymore. And then you're like, oh, okay, what do I do now? And then it could also be that you got married into a relationship that wasn't with your person. I've had a few conversations recently where I've had clients who were kind of forced into it or talked into it by somebody else, and they're not happy, and they start to choose that I didn't actually choose this for myself, and I'm going to choose myself now, and I'm going to walk away, even though that's going to be hard, but I'm got to go find what's for me and not what somebody else chose for me. This may be for someone that's listening because that is definitely coming through. So once the identity collapses and you're going through all of that, and this is super uncomfortable. The caterpillar doesn't just snap its fingers and become the butterfly. There's a whole process where you completely turn into goo and then you turn into a butterfly. So it's going to be very uncomfortable. Then there's the embodiment, where you anchor into your new identity. You have worked through all of that energy of like those things that happened to you as a child or through your young adulthood. Sometimes you don't have to get that far, but a lot of us have been through a lot. And we get through all of that and we start embodying the truth of who we are. Not all of the programming and the conditioning and everything that's been piled upon us. My guides use the episode of Friends when Joey's wearing all of Chandler's clothes. We come into this world, we are pure. We come in with our soul blueprint, it's pristine, we're ready to go, we're naked, right? And then all of the programming and conditioning, like all of Chandler's clothes on Joey, we got to peel back all those layers and get back to the truth of who we are, back to our original soul blueprint. And so that's the part where we go through the scene, through the conditions, the identity collapse, and start embodying the truth of who we are. And it may feel raw. You're not necessarily knowing who this new person is or who you actually have been all along, but you couldn't tell who you were because you had all the programming and conditioning. So you start to really become yourself at this point. And when you can get to that point where you are comfortable with who you are, then you can contribute, which is the 5th step. This is where the awakening that you've gone through becomes service. It may be that you have always worked in corporate and then all of a sudden you want to go start a nonprofit to help little kids that don't have a home, or you want to help domestic abuse survivors get back on their feet. Or maybe it's that you move to a totally different country and you go and be of service there. Maybe you've been a doctor and you go work with Doctors Without Borders. It doesn't matter what the service is. It doesn't matter if it's just picking up the neighborhood kids from school. It's just about, how can I be bigger than myself? How can I help others? How can I show up in this world? It might be that you go to the library and read to little kids in their circle time. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It's just that you start being called to do something that's bigger than yourself. Maybe you go help at the soup kitchen.
Yeah. It sounds like you're inviting us to participate in something that's different than the current 3D matrix. You're inviting us to participate in a greater awareness and consciousness towards goodness, towards kindness, towards a lack of programming that we have been conditioned to believe of how things are supposed to be, and more so how we desire them to be, because we have been conditioned and, believed these patterns of ways of being, and that there is no other truth, but there actually is. And we just have to take one step at a time to choose that new earth consciousness.
Yes. And be in question. Don't assume you know. Don't assume that what you've been told is accurate. Be in question. Use your discernment. Is this true for me? Does this resonate for me? Because something that resonates for me may not resonate for you, and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that it's not our truth and that it's not for us. Not everything is for everyone, and that's okay. Could you imagine how boring the world would be if everyone was exactly the same?
So boring.
We would be so, mind-numbingly bored. And so, yes, where is, just be in question, because there are so many ways. Oh, they're bringing this through. So a lot of people have taken on what their families have said, or their religion has said, or their community, or their schools, or their teachings. They're using this example. So, how many of us learned in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue? Then it turned out, well, he didn't actually discover America, and he was actually pretty awful. And so we were indoctrinated into this teaching, and then we found out later that, oh, that wasn't actually what happened. And so that's why they're saying be in question. Don't take everything on as if it's your own. And also, this is very important for everyone. At the end of every day, make sure that you are returning everyone else's energy back to where it belongs. All you have to say is, any energy that is not my own, I now return back to whom and where it belongs with love. And I recall all of my power and energy back to me here and now. It is that simple, but we are like little lint rollers running through the world. We wake up, we're a clean sheet of lint roller. We go through the day picking up everybody's energetic particles, and by the time we get home, there's no stick left because we have picked up so much energy from other people. And then we wonder why we don't have clarity, why we can't think for ourselves, why all of this is happening. And so when we clear the energy of everyone else, then we can understand ourselves and be in touch with our own intuition again and what our soul desires. And there was one other piece of this that they wanted to bring forward, and it was, oh yeah, going back to not taking everything on. There's this meme that I had saw one day, and it was this woman cutting the ends off a ham before putting it in the oven. And her husband asks, "Why did you cut the ends off?" Or somebody asked her, and she's like, "I don't know, my mom did it this way." She calls her mom, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off the ham?" "I don't know, your grandma did that." Calls grandma, "Grandma, why do you cut the ends off the ham?" "Because it wouldn't fit in the oven." Yet they've carried it on throughout generation after generation, never asking why, and finding out that it was just an oven that was too small. So why not be in question? Things don't have to be done a certain way because that's the way they've always been done. Be innovative. What works for you? What is your truth?
Okay, we're going to end on that. Be innovative. What works for you? What's your truth? Question, remain curious. This is how you're going to find balance in your life. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to speak directly with Renee, she's in our community, community.sovereign-magazine.com. All her details are in the show notes. She has a show on our YouTube channel. Go over there, like, share, subscribe. She's going to be doing a year-long show with us around the New Earth consciousness. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely be over there and watching all of our shows. Thank you so much for being here. And she's going to be on our next one. She's one of our columnists. So definitely subscribe to the podcast. All right, we'll see you on the next one, Rennie.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another soul-led entrepreneur here to help you step into your sovereign self. Subscribe to our magazine and podcast and join our global community for all the magic. Details to connect with today's guest or join the movement are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It helps us reach our goal of guiding 5 million women to self-sovereignty.